Hello, students. Michael Sanchez here. Thank you so much for watching. Today we're going to be doing a great class on reading music, and we have some great violin instructors that are joining us today. I'd love to introduce Thornton Clein. Thornton, how are you doing today?
Great. It's an honor to be a part of your classes and everything, and to be an instructor for y'all and everything.
Absolutely. I hear the word y'all, so you must be down south. Where are you from?
I need to say you all.
Yeah, Thornton, tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been teaching for over 25 years successfully in the college level and all the way down to the elementary level. I have 4 books out. My recent book that's just been released is called Practice Personalities for Adults on Hal Leonard. I'm a graduate of, I've attended for my PhD graduate work at Eastman School of Music and studied with Cleveland Quartet member, Grammy member Peter Soloff and Oliver Steiner, some pretty well-known names. Raymond Montoni, went to the University of Illinois for a master's degree in Champaign-Urbana outside of Chicago, and bachelor's at Virginia Commonwealth University, all in strings and violin. And let's see what else. I play actively in a quartet in the Nashville area, Nashville, Tennessee, that is. And
Great. I don't know if you're qualified enough to be in these classes, but we'll let you in.
Okay.
Just kidding. Great. So what we're going to be talking about today is reading music, and I also would like to quick introduce our other instructor that's with us today, Stephen McMullen from Houston, Texas. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm fine, thank you.
Very good. So I'd love to start with you, Stephen. So what is kind of your approach regarding, first starting to teach students how to read music? What are some things that come to mind, maybe books or different methods that you kind of instruct to a new beginner?
Well, a few things depend on the experience of the student so far. Sometimes if a student is already old enough to be reading and writing, there are a few things we can express on the paper right away that are pretty easy to follow. The concept of making the steady beat pattern be equal to something on the written page. Usually we begin with some quarter notes, which is simple to identify like that. It's important if you're going to separate out rhythm as a single skill by itself. It's really important to get the concept across of the steady beat being the heartbeat of the piece. It has to be a healthy, repetitive, easy to feel kind of sensation, and then we can relate what's written on the page to the number of ticks or the number of pulses that we feel in the music.
Thank you, Stephen. Love to go to Thornton now and get his opinion just how important rhythm is when you're playing. What are some things that you would suggest to students to really grasp the concept of rhythm?
Well, rhythm is extremely important. If you don't have rhythm, it's pretty hard to stay together. Chamber music or any kind of thing, symphonic music. I have some books that I recommend that I've used, Notes for Strings, and there's another one called I Can Read Music, which is a very basic book that has a lot of rhythm exercises in it. It has 50 pitch exercises and 50 rhythm exercises, but I usually just have the students start out, review all the the basics, like the quarter, the whole note, quarter note, all those, all the way down to the 32nd notes and 64th notes, and I have them either tap them out, clap them out. They don't even have to play with the instrument, and then they can also start performing or playing the rhythms on open strings like the E and the A. But I give them a lot of rhythm exercises. I have them identify the ones that I play. Like I'll play certain rhythms for them, and they have to, real basic ones, and they have to identify them or play them back for me, what they hear. But it all goes back to just basically teaching the basics of the rhythm first, and then start to apply the rhythm exercises. And that takes time. It took me about a year or longer to actually read music. I don't know how long. Maybe you're some of the really smart people that can just grasp it right away. But when I was a kid, you know, starting out, it took me at least a good year to really grasp it. You know.
Thank you, Thornton. Stephen, your opinion just on different people's experience levels. You know, obviously everybody's in different boat when it comes to reading music. What's your suggestion to maybe those that haven't really don't really have experience and those that do?
Well, if you've been avoiding it, I would say get rid of your preconceptions about reading music in the classical style, because I would say this, that the graphic appearance of the music, the graph which we use, which is really just amounts to frequency, either lower and higher, and time. And we're all used to seeing diagrams like this from early education. If you just understand that we're just making a high and low and a sequence of events that are on a timeline, it starts to dawn on people that, wait a second, the rules of music are actually a little easier than reading English. And that is true. English comes with many twists and turns and exceptions to the rules. Music is just a few basic things, and the rules are never violated.
Thank you, Stephen. Another question, just or for Thornton, regarding key signatures. A lot of students, when they first start playing the violin, they struggle with just reading different keys, you know, knowing where to put their fingers down. What's some tips for you? Maybe some more difficult keys, you know, some different tips you might have, you know, just about, you know, flat keys, sharp keys, stuff like that.
Well, I teach this. I teach the students how to do the circle of fifths, you know, and have them actually memorize and commit to memory the you know, the first sharp, second sharp, third, three sharps, four, and on so forth. And I teach them, you know, the thing of, you know, where you do take the last sharp and go up a half a step, and you got the key, you know, or the flats go back one, and all that. That's how I teach the students that, and they memorize it basically, and then they can apply it to the what they see when they're actually reading music.
And how is scales kind of related into that? Like, is knowing your scales going to help you when reading various keys?
Oh, definitely, most definitely. I do apply the scales. I do need to mention that, yes, when I am teaching the circle fifths and teaching them the different sharps, all the different sharps, I will actually we'll actually go through the scales, even if it's just basic scales of 1 octave or 2 octaves. You know, don't have to do the really advanced of 3 octaves or more. You know.
And how often do you have students work on scales or work on, you know, music theory type concepts in their lessons or in their practice?
Every week. What we do is I divide, like if it's a 30-minute or an hour lesson, I divide it into review. I will divide it into, you know, a certain amount of minutes, like 10 minutes of review, 10 minutes or 15 minutes of scales, then repertoire, maybe 20 minutes. You see what I'm saying? So I structure the whole lesson and everything like that. And I want to mention, are you familiar with the Glamian method? Glamian? Anybody?
Stephen, are you familiar?
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm building it on the thirds. That's what I was saying is really interesting, because it actually does help with the tonality, and also helps teach double stops, using double stops. You know, and
Very good. What's your take on, say, different other types of books that are good for reading music or for improving, you know, tonality, intonation, stuff like that?
For myself, you asked me. Yes. Well, I was mentioning before, Notes for Strings and the. Are you talking about for beginners or for pretty much starting?
Maybe a little bit more advanced, like you know, say someone that's been playing, you know, maybe 3 to 5 years, something like that.
Well, at that point, I have people like, as far as sight reading, I use sight reading materials a lot. Like, are you familiar with the orchestral excerpts from Joseph Gingle? Joseph. those are some of the ones I do, and some of them are very difficult, and some are easier. Like they come in different volumes and everything, and they prepare students to actually audition for youth orchestras and things like that. And boy, that covers every covers every key, sharps and flats and all. And that's one of the books that I use.
Stephen, any books you recommend on scales or just anything music theory related that you would recommend to students, say, been playing about 3-5 years?
Well, a basic resource for scales is maybe the Carl Flesch volume, which is covers all of the scales and their variations. So major scales, minor scales, and the 2 variations on minor scale. Also, it has exhaustive material, and I don't recommend that one start out doing every single exercise on each scale, because they are quite advanced in some cases. So, but at least the first page and a half maybe of each of the major and minor scales would be appropriate for a moderately advanced student. And it just lays out some good patterns and suggestions. I understand that the original publication of that volume was only written out in C major, and it was expected that the student would apply all of the pattern variations according to key signatures mentally, or even have to write them out themselves. And I think maybe that's a method that we're underemphasizing today. We're very literal about reading the notes off of the page as being a pretty specific relationship to a fingering. But the original idea was to create a spatial relationship among the notes that the student would gravitate towards, so that they're more comfortable playing in all keys and in all positions by relying on their ear.
Thank you, Stephen. Anything to add to that, Thornton?
Yes, I would second that. The Carl Fischer book is excellent. I've practiced through all the years in that, and also the Galamian scale book too. I would highly recommend that too. Those 2 books.
Excellent. One book that I tend to use with students is the Barbara Baker scale book. It has a lot of good scales in it, you know, all the way from G to F sharp, and you know, it's got your melodics, your harmonics, your tonic scales. That's a really good book for students to really grasp, you know, music theory, and it's a little more advanced, but I think that's a really good book that I tend to use for a lot of students. If you guys want to write that down, it's a really good book.
Yeah, it's Barbara Barber, B-A-R.
Barbara Barber. Yes, that's right. It's I'll grab it real quick. It's this book. That's a really good scale book.
It is. It is very good. Yeah.
Very good. So yeah, Thornton, tell us more just about some of your tips based on anything music theory related.
As far as applying to the violin, I guess, yeah. Right? Like on how to play more in tune, intonation, or to figure scales out, or tonality, or what would you?
It was kind of a general question.
No, that's not. I'm trying to.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, there's so many aspects and angles with music theory, but yeah, anything that you suggest to students, you know, in that sector would be great.
Okay, well, I do like to use different patterns of bowings, you know, like he had said earlier, on all the scales. I like to, well, I don't know if the audience is familiar that when you come down on the scales, you know, it's always using the 4th finger. That's sort of given, you know, going across the strings to make it smoother, and going up is open strings. Everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, that's a given. On double stops, I don't know if this would be a little more advanced. I don't know if you would care for me to cover that a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, on double stops, what I do many times is one of my teachers taught me a really cool tip. His name is Raymond Montoni, and what I do is when I'm playing like let's say F sharp and D, to make it more in tune or better in tune, what I'll do is I'll compare like the third finger on the A string with the open D. I'll match those, and then I will play the first finger with the third finger, and many times I will only finger one at a time and air finger the other one. Do you follow what I'm saying? Like, in other words, like if let's say, I'll give you an example, like when I'm playing a D and an F sharp, I'll just play the D, but I'll finger the F sharp above the note, above the actual note. In other words, I don't actually play it. Do you follow what I'm saying? And then I'll actually play the F sharp, but finger the third finger over top of the note. Do you follow what I'm saying? So I'm concentrating I'm just giving a lot of concentration to one thing at a time. I believe that giving concentration to one thing instead of focusing on many things. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks for your tips, Thornton. I'm really curious. Just tell us more about your book that just came out.
Well, it's identified. First, it came out as Practice Personalities. What's Your Type is what it's called, and that was about a year ago, and that was geared more towards students like ages 3 all the way to through teens, and then the Practice Personalities for Adults is geared towards adults. But I have surveyed and observed over my 25 years of teaching. Over 1,000 music students that's a lot of students, and I've kept documentation of teaching these students, and identified 9 practice personalities of students, and I realized that no 2 students are alike as far as personalities. And then I devised effective and efficient strategies to teach these students based on their personality, each person's personality, and most of the time, we don't have just one personality. We have several combinations of different personalities, and that's the premises of the book. And in this book, the new one that's coming out, Practice Personalities for Adults, I actually have a practice practice personalities test that you can take, a self-test, to kind of get an idea of what your personalities are.
Very good. And just tell us maybe one of those personalities out of the 9, if you don't mind.
Well, of course, it's the obvious, like the perfectionistic, but that's very obvious. But then there's a not so detailed type of personality, which is the opposite. And then there's highly confident, over exuberant type of personality, very bubbly. Then I have this dramatic type of personalities, and then there's the fragile type of personality, very, very delicate. You'd think that an adult wouldn't have that personality, but I learned that we carry over some of our personalities from childhood to adulthood, but environment and things like that, and a lot of other factors play roles in changing altering our personalities. So those are just, that.
I was going to say, and I'm sure in your book too, I mean, do you talk about just how to overcome some of those personalities and ultimately be able to, practice more and more efficiently because understanding yourself?
Exactly. It helps the teacher, it helps the student to better understand themselves as their personality, so they can use effective, efficient strategies, to learning. And it's I found it very useful now in my teaching over the years, because it's not like I'm just, what do they call it, in the dark, just using one method for everybody, but I can identify the student now, and I can start teaching that student with effective, efficient strategies. And it's worked. It's worked for me, and I highly suggest that people pick up the book and read it.
Great. Well, thank you, Thornton, for joining us. And we're going to have a great evening planned out tonight. Some great teachings, and I hope you guys all stick around. This particular class we're going to call good for the day. So if you guys have any questions about music theory, please feel free to email me at rivertownviolin@hotmail.com. And for those of you guys that actually haven't emailed me or been on my list, we send out links to these classes whenever they happen. So thank you guys so much for watching, and look forward to seeing you in a future class.